Yeah, Coldwood, that's where we started this trip from there. If people don't know. In a few weeks, I'll be some ice climbing, but then I'll be in Slack Canyons in Utah. Go tunnelling down all those cool places. We go where the guy cut his arm off. And we go to the next canyon over. If you went to the Blue Dot, we go to the canyon next to that. So that's what I do for a job. I've done this for a long time. Basically my whole life. So I'm about 25, so I've been doing this for like 15 years now. But we started going to Alaska years and years ago. I love the Arctic. The Arctic is like one of my favorite places. I've been to all 7 continents, led trips to 40 countries. Still the Arctic, whether it's Greenland, the Alaska Arctic. I really love the Arctic. So a couple of years ago, the Arctic's really expensive to go to. To fly, hire a bush plane. Last summer when I was there, I think our bush plane bill for 4 trips in and out was like $20,000. It's a really expensive place. So there was a young man from Mount Morris, and he had interned or something with me, and then he called me up like a couple years later. He said, "Hey, I'm up in Alaska now, and I'm having a blast up here. I'm a ranger up at Gates of the Arctic National Park, which is Bettles, the Arctic Circle, and they do a lot of stuff called PackRafting up here. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of PackRafting." I mean, cool. Well, that's awesome. Some of you guys did it. So anyway, in this pack here, next summer we're going to do like a pretty hardcore trip up there. In this pack, I'll have everything that I need for about 15 or 16 days to cross 150 miles of the Arctic. That includes hiking, rafting, the food. You have to take a bear barrel even in the Arctic, just like the Adirondacks now. And you can fit it all in a pack like this. So they have these rafts that are only 5 pounds. So that's what I was going to talk a little bit about tonight. It's a little bit about exploring the Arctic, enjoy the rafts. ADK people love equipment, so we got to talk, equipment, and ounces and, that kind of stuff. I know ADK love equipment. Okay. But what I got to do first is actually I'm going to pull the pack raft out because it's been sitting in my garage and it's going to be cold. And since it's going to be cold, I don't want to blow it up that way. So, I've been doing that. I'll pass some of the stuff around. You can see how light the stuff is. What we try to do is have a pack under 60 pounds for 15 days in the Arctic, including your raft and everything else. Life jackets, I'm sure you're familiar with. And so this is the raft in here. We'll blow that up in a little while. It's basically the size of a tent. They're about 5.5, 6 pounds. The best ones are made out of a place in Colorado. It's called Alpaca, is the name of the company. These little tent pole parts are what make the lip. So a year ago when we went, we didn't have very tight-fitting skirts. I'll tell you some stories about the water coming in a little bit. This is a pump. Have some of you guys use the pump in a few minutes to blow this up. And then here's the raft. About $1,000 roughly, depending what add-ons you put. And I couldn't find one on wholesale or a pro deal. Almost everything I can get on pro deals because of what I do, except these. So we'll leave this here for a few minutes to warm up. And what else do I have in here to pull out? This nice light dry suit nowadays too. We'll go to the equipment in a little while. I think it's sweet. I brought some lightweight kinds of things to show you guys. Do little blow up pads. And let's start with a video so you can see what PackRaft looks like and what we've done with them. So this trip here, like I said, the Arctic's really expensive. So I had in my mind by using PackRafts, we could do the haul road, down in the back, and you could we rented a van and get some people drive us up at Coldwood. So we went north of the Arctic Circle. If you ever want to go to the Arctic Circle on a bus out of Fairbanks, you can get on one of those Princess tours. They drive you about 8 hours up, and then they stop in this incredibly mosquito-laden aspen birch forest. They put a carpet out on the ground with a line across it that says the Arctic Circle. And then the people get off the bus and they shake your hand and hand you a certificate. The people are like this, and they run and they get back in the bus. Honest to God. So, anyway, so we went past, we stopped for a minute, took our mandatory picture of the Arctic Circle, took a picture of people coming on and off the bus, we were taking pictures of us. And what we wanted to do, to avoid a push plane, was to drive up that haul road, then hike and do a loop through the mountains. So the loop that we chose was kind of special because it went through an area. Raise your hand if you've heard of Gates of the Arctic National Park. Have you heard of Gates of the Arctic National Park? No? Well, you guys got to read some more about the Arctic. Raise your hand if you've heard of John Marshall. You hear John Marshall? John Marshall was huge in the Adirondacks. Oh. That's why I was. But he also went up there and he named a lot of the features. It was an early person who was involved in the Forest Service, as the Forest Service for the U.S. government. But he was from the Adirondacks. He was from, he has a history in the Adirondacks. Anyway, the main features of the Gates of the Arctic National Park is on a river called the Koyukuk. So what we wanted to do was to get in there, go down that river and come out. So what that meant is when this van dropped us off, and then we told them that like 11 days later that they were, to come pick us up in another place. Now when we were going to pick us up, we had to be a little careful because it was a mine. And up there outside of Wiseman's an old mining town, if you read into the stories of the Arctic. And they have some disputes sometimes, and they have a lot of people with guns. So there was some debate about whether the van would safely pick us up or whether we would be shot. So we made it because I'm here. So I can tell you the story. But this is true. That's how it is up there. Anyway, so what we did is we got dropped off out of the van, and then as you'll see here, we had that 100+ mile loop. So we would get back and picked up down near Wiseman. Immediately after getting out of the van, the first obstacle, there's no trails. There's a river. So immediately you start to see fording a river here. We only carry one pair of shoes, the same shoes that you walk in all the time. They're always wet the whole trip. Some days we do 50, 60 river crossings when we weren't in the raft. So then you're in the raft, your feet are still wet. Anyway, so what we did was we crossed that river and then went up along River Valley, up over Mountain Pass, dropped down onto a river, and kayaked back out, or rafted down that river, and then we took 3 days to hike out through a place called the Delayed Pass. It's called the Delayed Pass because John Marshall went exploring there. It took him so long to get through it that it was really delayed, so they call it Delayed Pass. Raise your hand if you know what tussocks are. You know what tussocks are? And Daddy? Yeah, tussocks in the Arctic is a clump of grass. You can't step on them because you fall off. If you go between them, they can be like over knee high. That's why it takes, we were lucky to make 5 miles in a day. Some people are like, wow, Rick, you must not be in very good shape. You can only do 5 miles a day. If you've ever hiked in the Arctic, you can appreciate why sometimes you can only make 5 miles a day. But let me start with this video here. Oh, we got I stopped, there was a lady, there was a flag lady, so we all got up and took a picture where she was really cute on the hall over there. That's what the picture came. Okay, turn this on. Last one. So Steve, that was the young guy there that I told you was in Mount Morris, put together this route. There's a guy named Roman Dial, about Alaska, adventuring. Roman Dial's been adventuring forever up there. He's like really hardcore. He's one of the organizers of what they call the Alaska Classic, which is like 8 days across mountains and rivers. And he knew this guy, he's a professor, he picked out this route. So we did about 100 miles, but we intended to do an additional kind of loop through there, but it was pretty evident the first day we had to cross that river, and we were only making like about 5 miles a day on foot, so we weren't going to make much more than 100 miles. So we made about 5 miles. We're on the south side of the divide in the Brooks Range. What that means is on the north side of the divide is it's quite dry and there's no trees anymore. On the south side, as you saw, there's some trees. So once you cross the river, then you start working your way up a watershed. There's a lot of these tussocks and soft moss. People were really exhausted. It took us, took us 2 days to get to the head of the first pass. And one of the guys who's quite strong, he's been like on the AT, people were just really exhausted. He had to carry his pack the last half a mile up to the top of this pass for him. And it started hailing and snowing. Then we dropped down, and we got to the headwater of this little stream. Now, Arctic rivers are very temperamental, up high especially. So you don't really know what it's going to be like when you get there. It depends on the snow melt. The time of year that we go is right after ice out. So ice out in the North Slope area is about June 15th. You want to go between June 15th and about the 4th of July, because the mosquitoes haven't quite started yet. And actually, for that whole trip for being in the Arctic, I even slept out under the stars once, which was pretty amazing for being in the Arctic. We did another regular raft trip ahead of that, and there were like hardly any mosquitoes. It was really, it's just a great time of year to go to the Arctic. If you can catch the ice out, and if the weather's just right, the snowpack's been good. So we can get on a couple days, we can hit this water. Now we have 60, 65 miles to go to where we're going to walk through the Lake Pass. And this young guy that was helping me, he's pretty good with his boats and stuff. And we put it on the river, so I'll show you how to pump it up here in a minute. But then it starts to rain. So this raft, the way it goes together is, actually, can I get a couple volunteers? Got you three to help me here? Okay? Slide that in there. Slide on this end. And then we're going to top these. Okay, so this raft, actually, around that gasket, they have tent poles. But the earlier rafts they made just had Velcro. Well, some of the Velcro didn't close on the people's rafts. And nice dry suit. Some of the guys would just have spray tops and bottoms. So when we got it on the river, it started to pour rain and hail, and as soon as we put in, how you doing there? Okay? Doing great. And then you just kind of do just exactly what you're doing, and then do one and then the other, and then you'll be able to zip it in. So what they're doing is putting it in, and then they're going to put a zipper on it. So we put it on the river, and this rain comes down, and I'm the last one in. I watch as Steve, who's supposed to be helping this young guy, he heads off, and he immediately gets stuck on a gravel bar. There's like braided river all over the place. The other 4 guys, they have no idea which way to go. They're not that experienced in paddling. They're going backwards, sideways, hitting rocks, and the water's coming in over the sides of the rafts, the ones that just have Velcro, and I'm just standing there going, oh wow, how are we ever going to get down 65 miles on this river? So we go, and there's like pretty good waves. These things are pretty good in about class 3 rapids. Okay, as I'm talking, now we'll get 3 other lovely volunteers. Can I get you 3? Come on over here. Show you how this works. Okay. So there's a valve on the back here. Okay. Valve, exhibit A. Okay. This is like a cake decorating tube. Do you have experience decorating cakes? A little bit, Bill? Okay, good. So we have skilled people, so that's good. Okay, that's important. Okay, so you screw this in here. This pump is so cool. Okay, this goes in, and then what you're going to do, when you can take turns or something, is you hold this up to the wind. Yeah, good. Yeah, great. Okay, hold it up to the wind, and then you squish the air down in it. Yeah. I got to twist it in. It's not going in. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just having you guys work on filling that up a little. Let's get close to the other side. Okay. If you get good at about 2 to 3 minutes, we'll see how the studio audience does. Okay? So we put it on this river, and the waves are coming in, and a couple of us in some dry suits. It's kind of chilly. People's hands are kind of, if you're paddling cold weather, it gets a little hard holding your paddles. And it's becoming apparent to me that we're going to get hypothermic really quick because people are having trouble talking. Okay, if we pull into the rapids, so I'm like, okay, we got to stop. So I pull everybody off the river, and the people that had dry suits, we put up a tarp really quick, put everybody else in there, and had them change their clothes. The people that didn't have dry suits as the rain came pouring down. Of course, in June, how many hours of sunlight are there in the Arctic? 24, right? Right. Yeah, I had a New York City professor one time call me and he goes, yeah, I want to see the 24-hour sunshine. I'd also like to see the northern lights on that trip. Yeah, it doesn't happen. Anyway, 24 hours sunshine. So we pull off, and the reason I was telling you the story because what happened next is so cool. So we put up the tents, eventually the rain stopped. And literally, I'll put the packing list on here so you can see how little we carry. There's not a lot of margin. Oh, that's my son. It was outside magazine picture they took this year. About Canyonland. The packing list. Okay? So packing list. Basically, the only thing you have is your dry suit, a pair of long johns put underneath it, maybe a fleece shirt, and then you have a pair of hiking pants, and maybe a little warmer fleece jacket. That's pretty much it. You're wearing one pair of shoes. How are we doing? Keep going. Good. You use this just eating out of the pot you cook in. Because like I said, you need to keep that weight really, really light. So when you get really wet and cold, it's a problem. Anyway, so we did eventually, the rain stopped, we had the tents, and then after we went to bed about 10 at night, we hear this barking of a dog. And we look out, and a wolf has stopped from maybe here to where the back of the auditorium is. This wolf just sat down and barked for 20 minutes at us. It was like one of those amazing moments, you guys that have been in the wilderness, you know how you have sometimes, when you think, oh my God, I'm just lucky to be alive, and then like this incredible other thing happens. It was really amazing.
So it took us about 2.5 days to get through as the river kept getting bigger and bigger. You go past literally what they call the gates of the Arctic, these really high mountains, glaciers up in there. We had some of the guys that weren't too experienced paddling flipped over a few times. The one guy, we'll see how we try to pack on in a minute. So we retrieve it, and things flush downstream fairly fast because you're moving about 10 miles an hour on this fast water. So it's hard to catch the gear. So we pull this guy ashore, flip this raft over, and he takes his life jacket off and he throws it down and he starts stopping away, like he's going away somewhere. Like, where are you going? He says, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this anymore. He's going to go. Anyways, I told him, look, how many times you flipped over? He said, 3. I said, when you flipped over 500 times, then you have a reason to complain. But I flipped over 500 times, you have a long way to go. Anyway, eventually the river mellowed and became quite a broad river that goes all the way down through the Arctic to Bettles. And then we could make it was easy to make 35 miles a day. Like that, yeah. Doing good, a little more on the river. And then, like I said, the problem was once we got down there, was that 3-day hike out through Delayed Pass. If I did it again, I would just go another 60, 70 miles in 2 days down to Bettles and take a plane, as opposed to hiking out. What was kind of cool is you saw when we were hiking out there, you saw the picture of the mining fan and stuff. We came upon a gold miners camp. But when we did hike out of there, like I said, the one guy's knees got pretty sore. That was a picture of him trying to stand up. It took him quite a while, but yeah, his knees were quite sore. When he got off the plane here in Rochester, his wife was really upset. She called me up the next day because they took him to the hospital. So he sat on that plane for 2 hours and he couldn't walk. They were just glad he was okay. But anyway, it's a pretty tough, tough trip. So what we can do with this here is, I'll show you some more of the parts here. That's new or need to do. That's my pack cover. It just basically need to be in good shape. So, run, like some of you guys probably do, like 45 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days a week, be able to do. All right, look at that. Now the seats inside you can blow up too. Blow up the seats. There's a seat and 2 pieces. Go ahead, blow those up. Yeah. This is how I do the trips too. Next I have my tent. I'm sure you'd love to try to set like that up. Yeah, the stronger obviously you are, the better. You can do like gentler PackRaft trips, of course. But we're purposely, these guys are the ones that like been a mountaineer with me, Mount Baker, a lot of my mountaineering kind of guys. So, but in that range where you're able to run 40 minutes a day, 5 days a week kind of range, it's kind of helps get these guys through. So, pretty healthy. Pretty healthy. I mean, you can use them. I'll show you the one, and then I'll show you the video I did in Lynchburg. I mean, you can do that too. For me, they're using them a lot. Alaska is using a lot of PackRafts. If you go on YouTube, in PackRaft, you're going to find a ton of Arctic because it's so hard to get into places and it makes it impossible to explore. Yeah, isn't that cool? You stay right there. Okay, pull that over your head. Okay, what's your name? David. Okay, you want to help me get dressed in the skirt? Okay. All right, and then you can help me put the straps on there and I'll give you the paddle here. So they have places in Fairbanks you can rent them. They cost, like I said, they cost about roughly $1,000 for these things. They're really expensive. They're made like a coated urethane, and they're amazingly durable. All right, here you go. Here you go. What do you think? I normally do because it's so light. So we would paddle in some spots where like ice jams. We have to portage or scout, and you can get out. And if you put the pack on this way, you put the straps on your back, and you walk along with this giant flag. Yeah. But it's also good because if there's any grizzlies, you look a lot bigger and meaner than them. So, and that's how you do it. So a lot of guys are paddling some hardcore rivers in these, class 4 and class 5, and even some people even put thigh straps in to learn to roll. But it's pretty wide. It'd be hard to roll, wouldn't it? You think? Okay, you do it. Okay. We have to give you some thigh straps. I haven't done anything yet. Think about it. Why would that be? What's going to happen if you're with front? Where's the weight?
So this keeps it around.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's designed like that, right? Yeah. So that's another reason you can't carry too much weight, because then it won't be balanced. They make these in 3 sizes. So this is a medium. Ideally, you want it so your feet hit the other side of it, the front of it. If you notice in this one, they've changed from that style there. You see how they put that point on the back? Again, if you think about it, intellectually, hydrodynamically, right? If you paddle along, that creates a vacuum back there, and it drops. So that point makes it a bit more efficient. You can get these flat water maybe 2 miles an hour. These are pretty slow. And they spin, as you can probably guess by sitting in there. It spins like crazy. So you can spin it really well. They ferry surprisingly well. You can do pretty good ferries, mostly upstream ferries. So you can spin it quick if you guys are paddling, do an upstream ferry. You can catch eddies pretty good at them. But they are slow. Like headwinds are tough in them. Yeah. You're pretty snug in there. That skirt's pretty snug. This new tentpole kind of design that they have there. But like I said, they do have now, they started also making a neoprene skirt for them, which I haven't seen here used. They make a fancier one now that has a zipper in the back where that point is. You unzip it, and then you slide in a long dry bag on both sides. So your gear actually goes in the tubes. Because as you can guess, with that weight up front, it makes it a bit, top heavy up there. It does tip around, quite a bit.
I always just means dryer inside too, though.
Which?
If you were to put it inside
it does, but what we do is I use nice still dry bags. It's basically like this, but you can buy these that just work like a dry bag. But they're not very durable. Like by the end of one trip, I duct tape over. Because if you had a hard thing like the bear canister and you slid the bear canister in, you had to be careful because you wore a hole in it. So we used, everything was extremely lightweight, but basically like this. And that worked pretty good. If I was really worried about something, put a plastic bag inside of it too. And then the combination of the two, because though a couple of guys flipped a bunch. The boats, we experimented well with the dry bags. They work pretty good. Let me show you just going down Ledgeworth, and then I'll answer questions. I'm just crazy how you need glasses nowadays. Do this stuff on that. Let's see. So one day I went for a run on the Finger Lakes Trail, cut off with my GPS down to the river, and then floated down to the dam. Hiked back up, left my mountain bike in the woods, and then mountain bike in my pack. I raft back to where I started the car last fall. And then I tied my mountain bike to the front of the raft. And then I paddled the white water stretch. And then I biked the trail to the side of the road all the way back. It was a great loop. I never mountain biked that side that was near the road the whole way. It was, so it's fun. People come up with all kinds of imaginative things and, ways to use these. What questions do you have, would you like to ask? Go ahead.
You mentioned in the Arctic trip, grizzlies or bears as well as bear canisters. Were you in bear country?
Yeah.
And did you have bear canisters?
Yeah, in case of the Arctic and National Wildlife Refuge, like most of our places in this country now, they require you to carry bear canisters. So yeah, we carried bear canisters. This trip on that river, I didn't see any grizzlies. The week before, when we were on the Congacut River, we saw grizzlies maybe 4 or 5 times. Usually we see grizzlies at some point in the Arctic. If you're in the area where there's still trees, you may see black bears too. So on that trip, potentially, we could have seen the black bears in the trees and the grizzlies up higher. Most of the grizzlies in the Arctic are really nice. When they see you, they run away. They're not used to people, mostly. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
What did you eat?
Well, I'd like to say that we fished and hunted for everything. That's right. We put our meal really, really tight. So for breakfast, we'd have a hot cereal with nuts and fruit, really light. For lunch, we'd have something like 1 tortilla and a hunk of cheese. And then for dinner, we would do, your basic 1 pot. We dehydrate, salsa and broccoli and shrimp and stuff like that. And then in addition, everybody each day then had a large handful of pork that they could eat whenever they wanted. We did have Snickers bars one day, and this one guy, he kept the Snickers bar like the whole time. Like 5 days of the trip, we had a Snickers bar every day. Paul, did you eat your Snickers bar? No. In fact, he just moved to South Carolina. He still had that Snickers bar. Honest to God, that's true. Yeah, he must have. We had a party. We had a party. We were shooting this cannon down in the hills with these guys from Vermont. We're shooting the cannon, and Paul still got his, Snickers bar. Other questions? Yeah.
What was the temperature like on the Arctic?
Yeah.
Now that you've done it a number of times, how long does it usually take you to translate the raft?
About 3 minutes. Yeah. You guys did pretty good. Yeah, just get it a little smooth. It does help if you're outside and there is a wind, honestly, because then you can fill it up, a lot quicker. The temperature, in the daytime is really quite pleasant. You can be hot in your dry suit. And at night, in the Arctic in the summer, if the sun's out, it can be in the 70s. If it's rainy, it's in the 40s. That's probably a good way to explain it. At night, it goes down to the mid-40s. It's very nice in the summer there. Yeah. Question?
Yeah. I saw on the list of satellite phone. What's involved with that?
Years ago we went to the Arctic. We didn't have a satellite phone. I mean, for some great stories. 4 or 5 days with no bush planes coming, running out of food, building igloos in August to keep people warm. It's kind of, technology has really ruined the world of adventure. Now we can call and we can find out why the plane's not there. So I do carry a satellite phone, but because I do this all over the world, I happen to have that kind of technology. So I carry one for an emergency. Now, if you do have an emergency in many of these places, you still have the problem of getting somewhere where a plane can land. And there's not always good spots for that. So just because you have a satellite phone, it doesn't give you, it gives you some margin, but not foolproof. Yeah, but basically it's just a satellite phone. They're like $1,200. You can rent one. You can rent it for like $250 for a week or 2. And then come to you in a dry box in the mail. Yeah.
Question about this trip, but in general, and trips. What's the, where you pull out, like from morning until 10 o'clock at night pressing?
Yeah.
Are you taking the approach of stopping and smell the roses? How do you?
It depends on the kind of trip. So like the week before that, we only had 50 miles to go the whole time on the river for the whole week. And those rivers can run 10 miles an hour, so you could, 2-3 hours, you could cover 10, 20 miles even. So then we stopped, did a lot of hiking. There's so many char. You just tossed your line in, you pulled out a char. We stopped fishing after a while because we couldn't So it depends. You know, this was designed, you know, when you're going point to point like that, you want to know you're going to live. You want to know you're going to get out of there when the van's there and you still have food. So you're pressing quite a bit. So this one was designed to press quite a bit. The week before, no. But if it's a point to point, you're pretty much going to press. Because in the Arctic, anything can happen. Put your whole grizzly bear can eat your food. You know, for me personally, I like to have, if I can add a little extra each day to create a margin. I'd be happy if I could do that. We were a little tight on this on the front end. People were having a lot of trouble going up there. So, just depends. Other questions? Yeah.
What kind of advice would you recommend for the packs? Make a difference?
Yeah, this one, you can check it out when you get up. It's a newer one that Cocatet's making. It's a thinner one. Compared to my old one, it's sweet. It's like great for sea kayaking. It doesn't have the rubber gasket here. It just has this. So the only rubber gaskets are on the wrist in it. Then it has the speed. So this one is probably easily 1.5 pounds lighter than my regular dry suit. I forgot what they call it. Paddling suit, I think, or something like that. But it's Gore-Tex. Yeah. And then as far as, you know, what we were doing, we needed a pack that could carry the weight. So I use an Osprey pack. It's a little bit lighter. It's one of the lighter Osprey packs. It's a 65-liter pack. I'm not strong enough anymore to carry more than 65 liters. So if it gets bigger than that, you know, I gotta cut. The thing about getting older is to buy lighter weight gear. I got aluminum crampons now. You know, I just got some diamond slings in the mail. Yeah. So, yeah. Other questions? Things you always want to know about PackRafting. You couldn't sleep without knowing. I have one a year from this year. Hey guys, a year from this year, I was going to take 4 people and do 150 miles on the North Slope. It's a like world class, amazing. We'll get to a beaver plane and Coldfoot actually. Live Coldfoot, Coldfoot plane, beaver, which is like a 5-seater 1950s. Awesome. Oh, this is great sound. And then we'll fly to a river called the Marshport to Canning. Go 50 miles down the Marshport, like 25 miles over to another river valley, down that river valley, hike into the Bula Bula, over the pass again, and then all the way out to the Arctic Ocean, and then end in Kaktovik, which has been a National Geographic for the Inuit. So yeah, it's real fun. Yeah, let me know if you want some info on it. If anybody wants any info in general, I mean, you can grab brochures, but you can always, easy to find me, just type pack paddle ski will come up. But the reason I'm doing it a year from this summer is because I want people to have a little more skills. I want people to have at least some basic, like, leisure kind of skills. I want to start training in the spring. So I just got back, like I said, about a week ago, so a bunch of people told me that not much, some people told me they're interested. So I got to get those 4 kind of committed because it's a serious trip. It's, you know, it's doable, but we got to take it serious. Yeah. You can buy them or rent them. It's kind of a trade-off because to rent it, it's like $400 to rent one of those, and like $200 to rent one of these. You know, if I do what I do is for these, I can sell to people for what it costs for wholesale. You know, those I can't get them any cheaper, but if someone wasn't going to keep one, you can sell them almost for retail because there's no discount. It's not like everything else you can buy on eBay nowadays, right? You buy it at Joe's Discount Party House. Okay, well, you can't get an alpaca wrap at Joe's Discount Party House. Well, the alpaca sells them, and they don't discount them. They don't even have dealers. Not very many dealers. So, yeah. So, but those are the 2 options. Yeah. Eric has one. Yeah. Yeah, right. Other questions? Things you want to know? Anything else?